make any attempt at a conditional surrender?
No, sir. The question is either we live or we die. We fight it out to the last.
I found the governor in a bunker, trembling like a leaf. There was an enormous crash, and I'd written my resignation statement in a matter of seconds.
The Pakistan military authorities accepted the Indian ultimatum.
So the defeated East Pakistan Army returns to Dhaka. Today is recorded as the end of East Pakistan. The only public works to be seen is the digging of trenches in and around the city. Regulation, shape and depth to save 1.5 million people from possible Indian air attacks. And despite the general talk of war, the only evidence that the civil authorities are preparing for it are these trenches. In order to remind people here that Indian infiltration is a reality, 6 Indian soldiers captured last week were presented to the Pakistani and international press. We were told they belonged to the Naga regiment and had been captured 2 miles inside Pakistan. We were told through a Pakistani interpreter that they were among 200 Indian troops on a search and destroy mission. In fact, the only search and destroy missions locally that have been successful have been those carried out by the Mukti Bahini, the East Bengali guerrillas. Last week, they blew up the government's Department of Film and Production, in effect, the government's propaganda department. The Mukti are operating now regularly within the city, more confident now that the army has thinned out. And purely as an act of terror, they blew up a school house. 22 children were injured here. There are between 80 and 100,000 Mukti Bahini operating within East Pakistan. And in the last few months, they've blown up 165 bridges, large and small, have damaged 5 cargo boats, including 1 British boat from Calcutta, have sunk a 1,600-ton jute barge, and have blown up a power substation. And they have committed, in Dhaka alone, 6 political assassinations every day. In order to fill the gap left by the army's evacuation to the border and to combat Mukti activities, the government has organized a paramilitary force called Razakars. The Razakars' main duties are roadblocks, often carried out with a great show of force, and sentry duties around the main government installations. Some recruits to the Razakars are students, but many come from the militant wing of the Muslim League, who were responsible for much of the murder and the burning of villages which followed March the 25th. They are all East Bengalis and are paid by the government direct. But no one knows just how loyal they would be to the government if that loyalty was ever under stress. In their last short war against India in September '65, Pakistan East and West fought as a united nation against their enemy across the border. But today, no one any longer takes that national solidarity for granted, in fact, quite the reverse. Because of Indian propaganda, because of what happened here in March and what happened afterwards, because it's India that is giving aid and comfort to the thousands of Mukti Bahini and has almost recognized an independent Bangladesh nation, because it's India that is burdened with the millions of East Bengali refugees, because of all this, India is beginning to succeed here in projecting an image as the friend of the people. Michael Nicholson, News at 10, Dhaka, East Pakistan.
The first village we came to, about a mile inside Pakistan, was completely deserted. The villagers had fled, leaving their animals behind. But as we went inside the village, we saw the first signs of destruction, the result of the battle for this area. Overhead, Indian Air Force planes were still circling, and in the background still the boom of the guns, occasionally sounding much closer. We were soon to find out why. The Indians claim to have occupied over 100 square miles of this part of Pakistan, a spot where the border bulges into India and which the Indians have christened Chicken Neck. But they're not holding it without a considerable number of troops. Just how many, they won't say for security reasons. They say that their casualties so far in this sector have been very light. That's not always true of their vehicles. A number of Indian Army trucks have been hit by Pakistani shells. But the Indians are returning the fire, and that was the closer gunfire that we'd heard earlier. We came upon a gun emplacement heavily camouflaged. Every so often, orders came through by radio from forward observers identifying a target, and the guns were prepared for firing. While we were there, the Pakistani army did not return the fire, but the effects of their earlier bombardment were all too apparent. This used to be the town of Fulkian. After the Indians came over the border, they occupied this spot. Since then, the Indians say, the Pakistanis have been shelling it, believing that there are troops there. There were, but they've since been moved out.
It looks as though the fighting here on this border is going to go on for a very considerable time yet. Michael Brunson, News at 10, 10 miles inside West Pakistan.
So after 11 days, After 11 days, the Indian Air Force are still attacking Dhaka. This time they've changed their target to the south of the town. Firing rockets at what we assume is a new army colony on the south of the town. The army may have moved their headquarters, and they're firing rockets. Okay, tell us what happened in the trench.
Well, I got there after the first raid on the governor's house, which half destroyed the residence. Then I got there just after that. I found the governor in a bunker in the garden, trembling like a leaf and saying, I didn't quite know whether to resign. Should I resign? Will my wife be killed by the Indian Army? Can I get her at the Intercontinental Hotel? As we were standing there in this bunker, suddenly there was another raid. And all hell broke loose. There was an enormous crash, and hardly the crash died down, but the governor suddenly produced a ballpoint pen, scrap of paper, a few carbons, and had written out a resignation statement in a matter of seconds, just in time actually for the second big crash.
The feeling is that you don't have enough men here in the town to put up a big fight.
Makes no difference. I never show my men.
Will you make any attempt at a conditional surrender?
No, sir. The question is either we live or we die.
But some attempt has already been made in the past few days to come to some form of agreement.
No, well, when I heard that, I told them what I felt about them.
Which was?
Well, that's between him and us. We stay here dead or alive. We fight it out to the last.
But a lot of men might die.
This is the price of the freedom.
But what freedom? Not yours.
It's mine, yes, my country, Pakistan's.
You still consider that you stand a fighting
Pakistan
chance
will
of...
stay, yes, inshallah will stay.
You're not being...
She says she can't come in. Will you be responsible for bringing her up? Thank you very much.
As we have very little place available, we give now priority only to women and children. No men allowed anymore.
We went up to the cantonment and there we met with General Farman, representing the Pakistan Army. He confirmed to me that the Pakistan military authorities had accepted the ultimatum. He also told me that the Pakistan radio network had been destroyed and that they were not in contact with the Indian authorities. He then asked me to use the United Nations radio network to inform the Indians that the ultimatum had been accepted. I immediately got onto the radio, with this radio in fact, contacted my headquarters and asked them to transmit that to New Delhi. They did so immediately.
Now you take mine.
Give him a chair, give him a chair.
Hey! Come on! Adalal dona.
So the defeated East Pakistan Army returns to Dhaka along the Tungi-Jaidapur road. Some miles behind them, no doubt, is the victorious Indian Army making its way to the capital. Today, Thursday, the 16th of December, is recorded as the end of East Pakistan. Michael Nicholson, News at 10, Dhaka, Bangladesh.
There was a striking and unhappy illustration of the way that Bengalis are taking their revenge at a meeting held at Dhaka's stadium to honor the heroes of the Mukti Bahini. Abdul Qadir Siddiqui, once an ordinary soldier in the East Bengal Regiment, raised and led 12,000 guerrilla fighters in a large area surrounding Dhaka. In his speech, the hero of Tangail, as he's known, vowed that his men would not lay down their arms until Sheikh Mujibur Rahman came safely back from his prison in West Pakistan. But he appealed to his men, who stood with rifles and machine guns policing the meeting, not to take revenge on those who had oppressed them and not to flaunt their arms in the streets. As he spoke, 5 men, said to have been caught looting and abducting some women, were brought to the back of the rostrum. They were bound and beaten by Siddiqui's men. The violence didn't stop, and along with other television crews, the ITN team left the scene. Moments later, General Siddiqui himself, who had earlier urged restraint on the crowd and promised the prisoners a fair trial, himself took a rifle and helped bayonet them to death, firing a bullet to finish off one man. It's not surprising that the 24,000 Pakistani prisoners of war now in Dhaka's cantonment should fear the Bengalis' vengeance. That's why, until now, they've been allowed to keep their weapons. The Indian Army was not certain it could protect them. But at last, at a formal ceremony, the officers of Pakistan's Army, Navy and Air Force laid down their arms. It was a somewhat theatrical event. General Gandharv Nagra assured the officers that they would be treated with the utmost correctness according to the Geneva Convention.
We shall provide all protection and safety. No measures of reprisals would be taken. Free boarding, messing, medical facilities will be provided to you all and all your rank.
Then, on the command of their own senior officer present, General Mohammad Jamshed, the leaders of Pakistan's defeated army laid their pistols, Sten guns and rifles on the grass in the final token of surrender. I asked the Pakistani Chief of Staff, Brigadier Baghir Siddiqui, what he'd felt about the ceremony.
Well, it's all right. Part of the game, I suppose.
It didn't cause you any qualms?
Well, you can understand our feelings. But as the General said, this does happen, and so people have to play the game, and I think it's a part of the game. We have to accept it in good grace.
Why did you, in the end, surrender?
Because for the consideration of the human lives.
Could you have fought on?
we could have fought on for a long time, not less than 30 days.
With due military ritual, the war in the East had been brought to its ceremonial conclusion. Richard Linde, News at 10, Dhaka.
Those who took part in war must be treated as war criminals under international law, war law.
Will you ask the Indian Army to release those men to you for trial?
Certainly, Indian Army is acting in unison with our armed forces and under the authority of our acting president in Bangladesh. Therefore, they will have to act in unison with us.
Indian Army has got an authority to try anybody who was a citizen of this part even before 25th of March. If there is to be any trial, that is to be done by the Bangladesh government.
And will there be such trials?
Certainly there would be.
I hope so. But according to law.
How many people do you expect to put on trial?
That is very difficult to say.
We will not be going for witch hunting, but then the crimes against humanity must be brought to book.
Won't this make it impossible for the West Pakistanis to release Sheikh Mujib?
It should not be made impossible. It should not be impossible for them to release Sheikh Mujib. But then that cannot be a bargain. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman has not committed anything against the West Pakistanis or West Pakistan as such. He was always advocating for what is good for common struggling masses, including the West Pakistanis.
For 9 months, it was the Bengalis in East Pakistan who suffered. Now, in their day of triumph, it is their enemies and the wives and families of their enemies who mourn. To be a non-Bengali in Dhaka today is indeed a miserable plight. These Bihari women huddle miserably in a school in the Mohammadpur area. Their husbands are missing, killed in the last weeks and days as the Mukti Bahini grew bold at the advance of the Indian Army. Now the Indian soldiers, having disarmed the non-Bengalis, are trying to guard the areas in which they've clustered together for protection. White flags flutter on the rooftops and at the entrance to these new ghettos. None dare venture far outside. Bengalis claim that it was Biharis and other non-Bengali groups who carried out the worst atrocities during the last 9 months. Now, large numbers of non-Bengali men have been arrested by vigilante groups in the name of the Mukti Bahini. In one police station, we talked to some of them. Are you getting food and water?
Yes, sir, getting food.
You are?
Yes, from last night.
From last night?
From last night.
How long have you been here?
From 3 days.
3 days?
Yes. They are keeping us quite...
What do they say will happen to you?
Oh, no, God knows what will happen.
Will they put you on trial?
I don't know. I've got no information.
No trial, without trial.
Rations are minimal and conditions bad. The police say that after interrogation, some of the prisoners are sent to the city's central jail to await trial, while others are released. Like their menfolk, if they've been lucky enough to survive, families of West Pakistanis are being sent to the military cantonment to await ultimate repatriation to West Pakistan. For months, 10 million Bengalis fleeing from their homes in terror, fearful of the West Pakistani army and its allies, the non-Bengalis, have lived wretched lives in the refugee camps of India. Now, as the new nation of Bangladesh struggles into existence, it's the turn of those who helped oppress the Bengalis to suffer, to live in fear and misery. Richard Linde, Dhaka. Before the Indian Army can think about leaving Bangladesh, 93,000 Pakistani prisoners of war will have to be transported to India. 25,000 of them are here in the Dhaka cantonment getting ready to leave, guarded from possible Bengali vengeance by the men with whom less than a fortnight ago they were at war. The Indian Army's Chief of Staff, General Sam Manekshaw, who's been paying a 2-day visit to his troops in Dhaka, says that at the moment some 3,000 prisoners of war a day are being taken out of the country. He hoped that by the beginning of next month the daily average would be 10,000 and that in any case by the 15th of January all of them would be in Indian prisoner of war camps. By that date too, the General said, he would have reduced Indian armed forces here by 25,000. But they still can't all go home.
115 अफसर.
For one thing, they're the only agency in the area capable of seeing that the 10 million Bengali refugees now in India get safely back to Bangladesh. For another, Indian soldiers, no matter how much the Indian government likes to play this down, are the only people capable of keeping law and order here and protecting minority groups from Bengali retribution. In addition, the army is safeguarding the lives of those Bengalis who ran the civil administration for Pakistan. The Bangladesh government is setting up a war crimes tribunal to try Dr. Malik and his colleagues. Will the Indian army be told by Delhi to hand them over? I asked Mr. D.P. Dar, Mrs. Gandhi's special envoy to Bangladesh.
We are in the horns of a dilemma, I must admit to you. On the one hand, we do not want to do anything which is against the norms of international behavior. Nor do we want to do anything, on the other hand, which would even remotely impinge on the sovereign rights of the Bangladesh government and Bangladesh state.
What does that mean in practice? Are you going to hand people over to a war crimes tribunal or
That
not?
means, for the time being, that the position is being legally examined.
As any victorious army would be, Indian armed forces are now deeply involved for the foreseeable future in the way this new country is going to develop. Richard Lindley, News at 10, Dhaka. The train is on its way to the river port of Naranganj, a dozen miles away. The operation began long before dawn. At the cantonment siding, Brigadier H.S. Clare supervised the loading of the train. Like all Indian commanders, he'll be glad when these POWs have all been safely moved across the border. Here they're a potentially dangerous cause of friction with the local population. The train was well guarded by Indian soldiers in case of any hostile demonstration by Bengalis.
What's the attitude of these people on this train? Are they glad to go or what?
No, they're happy to get away from here. Certainly. I'm quite sure that they won't have any hostile attitude when they go to India. Whereas in this place they can't get out at all.
Are you worried about any demonstrations on the way to the boat?
No, I'm not, because I think we've taken sufficient precautions to make sure that nothing happens.
At Naranganj, a Pakistani naval commander organized the embarkation.
All commanders of their groups report to me immediately here.
Apart from their military kit, the men took nothing with them but food and cooking equipment. The railway line ran right onto the dockside, sparing them the humiliation of a jeering Bengali crowd. Even so, a small group on the roof of a harbour building broke into jubilant shouts as the prisoners trudged down the quayside. At every step there were Indian soldiers to protect them had it proved necessary. Bengalis are not best pleased to see their enemies go home apparently scot-free. But there's a long way to go before these men can expect repatriation. First, the 36-hour boat trip through the river system to Khulna, then a long journey across the border into West Bengal by train, and on to the prisoner of war camps on the Ranchi Plateau in Bihar. With the men go their families and the civilian employees of the Pakistan Army. But there's no indication yet that other West Pakistani civilians, like the police chief or even the staff of Pakistan International Airways, are going to be moved. For the moment, the emphasis is on getting the soldiers out before their presence here causes trouble. And because many are still being brought into Dhaka from outlying areas, there are now 33,000 people to be shipped down the river. For those Bengalis cheering on the roof there, it's another day to savour the sweet taste of victory. For these prisoners of war, the bitterness of defeat. What lies ahead of these men is nothing but a tedious journey and the boredom of prison camp routine. But at least now, they've begun that long journey home. Richard Lindley, News at 10, Naranganj.
The rally was called to celebrate Mujib Day. And for some hours, crowds of students and local people waving banners and shouting slogans made their way in processions to a park outside the sports stadium. The Students' League president, Mr. Nur Alam Siddiqui, told them that when the Bangladesh flag was raised, Sheikh Mujib had asked whether they could stand by it. When Sheikh Mujib comes, he said, we will be able to tell him that he can see we stayed by it. Mr. Siddiqui and 3 other student leaders then took an oath of allegiance to Bangladesh, an oath echoed by the crowd.
So far, little is known of the arrangements being made to welcome the Sheikh. All that seems certain is that he'll fly into the airport here for an official reception. But the unofficial reception will certainly touch off scenes unparalleled even in the history of this volatile city. Hundreds of thousands of people are expected to take to the streets, firing guns in the air and celebrating in a wild frenzy that diplomats here say will last at least a couple of days. And getting the city back to normal afterwards will take several days longer. Robert Southgate, News at 10, Dhaka. Are you disappointed, sir, that so far the major Western powers, including Great Britain, have not recognized Bangladesh?
You see, they have their difficulties also. I don't like to blame anybody now. I hope, so far the Great Britain, France and others are concerned, they will recognize the reality and expect also. I mean, the United States of America, people of the United States of America, and other, the journalists, the men of reputations, the intellectuals, they understand the reality. And I'm sure it will be very big public pressure on Nixon government.
Do you hope that your country will be in the Commonwealth?
You see, this much I can say, I am not against the Commonwealth. If I get the recognition, then my government will consider it.
I was talking to some of the student leaders this week, and they told me that they regard the Bangladesh Students' League as being the parent organization of the Awami League, and that they're in a position to influence or even control your policies.
Students' body never interfere. They never interfere. The sister organization, no doubt about it. I'm the founder of the East Pakistan Student League also. And I'm sure, because they follow we follow each other's policies. They never try to influence on my point of view. I can influence them.
Sir, at the time of the surrender, the Indian General Manek Shaw gave a pledge that the Pakistani soldiers and the civilians would be treated with respect under the terms of the Geneva Convention.
They're doing it. I'm glad.
That pledge will be honored, will it, sir?
I'm glad they're doing it. They're doing it.
Do you foresee any links in the future between Bangladesh and Pakistan?
Let them recognize the reality first. Then I will give the reply.
Can I ask you, sir, about foreign investment in Bangladesh? I'm thinking in particular about British tea and jute interests. Do you have any plans for these industries?
I have not yet nationalized it. I have no intention for the time being.
And finally, sir, when a few weeks ago it was suggested that Bangladesh would not accept any aid from America, is that still the case?
I have not told it. Who told you these things?
Now, this was said in the press before your return, sir.
No, nobody has said that thing. ISTAD have cleared it.
And
anybody wanted to give us help, we have no objection, but there will be no condition.
The key tags at Dhaka's Intercontinental Hotel are shrinking these days. One by one, they're losing ½ an inch off the end. And it's the ½ inch that bears the name East Pakistan. For since Bangladesh was born, the people here have been doing all they can to rid themselves of the name the country once bore. All references to Pakistan have been painted out or covered up on official notices, shop signs and business houses. And it's not only the words that have vanished. On official letters, Bangladesh is overprinted. One tradition the Bengalis have inherited, both from the Indians and the British, is the over-liberal use of rubber stamps on a proliferation of forms and documents. And the rubber stamp manufacturers, working out of small open shops like this, have never had it so good. This is one place where Bangladesh is certainly making a mark. And if the rubber stamp is not yet to hand, the pen will do. The Pakistani flag is, of course, nowhere to be seen. In its place, the flag of Bangladesh, with a dazzling variety of colors and shapes. The motif in the middle is the map of Bangladesh, but since the flag makers couldn't agree on the convoluted contortions of the Bangladesh coastline, the government has moved to simplify matters. One of the first decisions of the first cabinet meeting of the new government was to drop the map from the middle of the flag. Another cabinet decision was that the national anthem should be a setting of a song by the Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore. Golden Bengal, I love you. Your sky and your breeze play an eternal song in my heart. The name game is even being played in the hotel restaurants. This used to be called a Pakistani omelette. Overnight it became a Bengali omelette. Now, taking no chances at all, the menu describes it as a local omelette. Mind you, if you ask the chef, he'll tell you it's all the same. Actually, it's a Spanish omelette. Robert Southgate, News at 10, Dhaka. There's very little money left in the country. Millions of rupees were transferred to West Pakistan last year, and in the last 2 days of the war, the Pakistani army broke into the state banks and burned about £5 million worth of paper currency. Industry is at a halt. Paraffin needed for cooking and heating is very scarce, and huge queues form for any supply that becomes available. Communications have been heavily disrupted. A third of the people are unemployed and most others underemployed. All this the Sheikh will learn as his advisors chronicle the events of the past 10 months he's spent in detention. But the Sheikh will know too that his new country has the potential to overcome its problems. 9 out of every 10 people live away from the towns, and 8 out of every 10 earn their living from agriculture. But the nation still can't feed itself. For Bangladesh, with its 75 million people, has one of the world's highest population densities. Formerly it imported 1 million tons of food a year, mostly from West Pakistan. In the short term, now it will have to look to India and the Eastern Bloc to provide it. In the long term, farming will have to be modernized and mechanized, and trade pacts being negotiated with Poland and Bulgaria do provide for the supply of farm machinery and fertilizers. It's fair to say that at present the food shortage is not as critical as many had feared, but the impact of the refugees returning from India may alter the situation. 5 major river systems ribbon their way through the country, rivers rich in fish. At present the fishing is rudimentary, but if this industry can also be modernized, it has a ready market in neighboring West Bengal, where supplies of fresh fish sell for 3 times their price in Bangladesh. But it's jute on which for so long the economy of the country has been built. Most of the mills, like this one at Demra near Dhaka, were owned by West Pakistanis. Now they've been nationalized, and it's hoped to be able to reopen some and ease the unemployment situation in the next few weeks. This mill is due to open next month, but with a labour force reduced from the 9,000 when in full production to only 3,000. There is raw material in stock, but last year's crop, like the tea crop, was largely neglected. And as the months go by, jute is losing more and more ground to synthetic fibres. Recapturing the markets will not be easy. Ironically, in a country of chronic unemployment, there is a labour shortage, but it's a shortage of skilled labour. Many thousands of skilled workers are still serving in the Mukti Bahini guerrillas on peacekeeping missions. Many thousands of others lost their lives. But despite this, the nation's richest potential still lies in its people. They've shown the will to win the struggle for survival and the fight for independence. Given strong leadership, few can doubt that they also have the will to win the economic battle. Robert Southgate, News at 10, Dhaka.